Oh, it's going to keep popping up. I still haven't finished my iCloud problem. Anyway. Shalom, everybody. All right, we're going to start off, as I promised, by singing the Aleph Bet song. Are you ready? Repeating after me. I'll have to do both parts, but repeat after me. Aleph Bet Vet, Aleph Bet Vet, Gimel Dalet Hey, Gimel Dalet Hey, Hey. I'm on this side. Vav Zayin Chet Tet, Vav Zayin Chet Tet, Yud Kaf Chaf, Yud Kaf Chaf, Lamed Mehem Nun, Lamed Mehem Nun, Samech Ayin Pefe, Samech Ayin Pefe, Tzadik Kufresh, Tzadik Kufresh, Shin, Sin, Tav, Ba, Ba, Da, Ba, Dam, Shin, Sin, Tav, Ba, Ba, Da. Nobody, Ba, Ba, Da, Ba, Da. Thank you very much. What kind of a class are you? You're not doing anything ridiculous yet. All right. Now we're going to do the aerobics. Anybody can stand up for aerobics? Just me? If there's a line under the consonant, it sounds like ah. If there's a line like this, it sounds like ah, stretching. If you've got a little squeaky nose, it sounds like E. Now, somebody asked the question, and it was a good question. When I was young and I was taught the vowels, I was taught that this one is an I, and this one is an E. That if you have the one dot, it's an I, and this is an E. But recently in Israel, I was told that, meaning the past 20 years, the language has kind of flattened out to the point where both this and this are E, and that's why I'm teaching it to you like that. And then similarly, when I have the three dots like this, it sounds like eh, and I taught you that the two dots like this sounds like eh. When I was taught when I was young, the tzera was an A, and the segol was an eh. But now in modern Israel, you would pronounce both of them the same way. You'll sometimes get an A sound if it's attached to other letters, consonant letters, and we'll talk about that. So let's start here again. We've got patach, then we've got kamatz, then we've got chirik, eep, and you don't have to know the names of the letters, but I'm going to say them for you. You've got chirik malay, E. You've got segol, eh. You've got tzera, eh. We've got kubutz, ooh, and shuruk, ooh. And we're going to start here, cholam, oh. And then kamatz katan, oh. And then we go below the line, below the line. Below the line are the shva, which is the absence of vowel sound. So first we have a resting shva, which sounds like, oh, you're good at this one. Then we have a moving shva, which sounds like, slicha. Try it again. Slicha. Then we have what is essentially a moving shva, but with auxiliary, with helper vowels, because it's under silent letters. So when the moving shva comes under some vowel, some consonants, it will combine with a patach, and it will sound like ah. And when the moving shva sometimes is combined with a segol, it'll sound like eh. And when a moving shva is combined with a kamatz, it's a kamatz katan, and it's going to sound like oh. So we saw it last week when we practiced some of our letters. Let's take a look at what we did last week, a quick review. We learned bar on the bottom, base goes beyond, ball in the belly, and it sounds like b. And then we learned a rounded resh, sounds like r. And then we learned the aleph, which sounds like no. That was way too loud for an aleph. Aleph sounds like there you go. And then we found this one, which was your tooth, the shin, and it sounds like shh. And then we found the tav, which is, sorry, we forgot to say, bar on the bottom, base goes beyond, ball in the belly, that's a b. Rounded resh, the aleph is open in all directions. The shin is a tooth, shh. And then the tav is attached at the top with a tail or a toe at the bottom left, and it sounds like t. So those were our first letters, our first consonants. We finished lesson 1. We are good to go on that. And it is true, we need to talk, and we will talk more about dialects and how the pronunciation is different. We talked a little bit about an Ashkenazic versus a Sephardic dialect when we talked about the tav, when it has a dagesh, sounds like t. Yeah, question? The shva, yeah. So nope, the shva, so when we do these, you mean? We didn't talk about those last time. That's why you weren't out. So what we did do last time is when we practiced, why is this is not supposed to die. When we practiced, I'll show you, when we learned it was when we looked at this, and I just want to show you how you get here again. I go to the Hebrew doc page, and then I go all the way down to the bottom to where it says sitemap down here. And on the sitemap, I go to where it says Learn Hebrew Day 1. That's an easy way to find this. And then we come here, and when we go to our lessons, when we get to the Aleph, whoa, go away. When we get to the Aleph, and we practice reading the Aleph, that was when we introduced it, because Aleph is a silent letter. So what happened was this. We practiced the Aleph, and we saw that it was A, E, I, O, U, and then we got to this. With all the other consonants, when we got to the end, we were practicing a moving shva. B, sh, t. But when we got to the Aleph, you can't have a moving shva underneath an Aleph. It's essentially a silent consonant. So you can't have a moving shva under it. So when you see an Aleph with a moving shva, it will have one of these helper vowels. So it allows you to have some kind of a sound with it. So you'll have will it go any bigger? So you'll have A, and you'll have E, and you'll have O. And that's when we mentioned them. We did it briefly. I snuck it in practice, but we didn't talk about it. You will say this as, well, officially the word for these composite vowels, which means that I'm taking a moving shva and I'm adding one of these three vowels to it. Officially in Hebrew they call them chataf letters, which means kind of plucked. So if you want to sound extremely authentic, which even most Israelis wouldn't, you can make it shorter than a regular A and an O and an E. You could make it a pinch shorter. That would be because it's kind of plucked version. So, and I'm trying to give you as authentic a pronunciation, and even not necessarily a normative, but a very good pronunciation when we do this. So then we get to our next lesson. Anybody go to the website to get our lesson books? So our second lesson, we're going to come back out of this, and we're going to go to here. We're in day 1, lesson 2, and we started having way better show me files. Remember the show me files, the practice files are these purple ones here? I did it much better in these. For example, let's take a look at the very first one. The first one is the Lamed. Oh wait, I forgot to give you a sound. Let's come back again. Hold on so you can hear it. This is the letter Lamed. It starts above the line, the only letter that goes above the line. And sometimes it has a straight line down. Sometimes above the line, people will make it in more parts below it. Sometimes you'll see it printed with the kind of a lookout somewhere above there. And sometimes you'll see it looking backwards, depending on the font style in a book. That's the letter Lamed, and it sounds like L. It has a capital L above the line, and it is the tallest letter. If you'd like to learn how to write it in the cursive, it's got a swoopy. You start with a loop at the bottom and swoop above the line. It should come onto the line on the bottom. It represents the number 30, the letter Lamed, L. Let's see if we can get this so that it sets up. You don't have to do that again, but that gives you you'll see that that's much better, a way of introducing it. And then we have, come on, we can do this if you step away a little. Step away from the box. Okay, stay there. And then if you go back to the page, if you go to, under the Show Me practice, the green practice, what we have here is references, practice for each of the letters. That's when we go through all of the vowels with it. You can do better than this. What happened to my Wi-Fi? I finally have it set up. Anyway, it should start eventually. But what's going to happen is instead of having it just on one page, you're going to see it on 2 different pages. My Wi-Fi looks really good. Why are we not getting there? Here you go.
Let's practice reading the letter Lamed. I'll point to each sound before we read it. Every vowel is represented here. La. La.
Remember, I have to find a way of pointing.
Le. Le. Li. Li. Lo. Lo. Lu. Lu. And la.
The letter Lamed. So starting with this lesson, you've got 2 files of show me's for each of the letters. This is just showing you as a reference to practice at home. So now, hopefully you get it. We learned the letter Lamed, the tallest letter above the line. That's a Lamed. Let me tell you a funny story about the letter Lamed. I had lived in Israel for a year right after high school. And it was really important to me when I went to Israel that I would feel like I was home. I didn't want to be one of those tourists that you go for 2 weeks and then you come back and you look at your pictures and then you see Israel when you're finally looking at the pictures. I wanted to experience Israel. I wanted to be home. And so I took as much Hebrew as I could before I went. And my Hebrew was pretty good. And as I mentioned last week, most of my teachers were Israeli. So even my pronunciation was pretty good. And people were impressed. I was impressed. I was very proud of myself. But, and I had already been there for at least 4 months, I think. And so I went to visit a friend in Haifa, from Jerusalem, Yerushalayim to Haifa. And I got on the right bus. I got to Haifa. I visited my friend. I got back to the bus station, and I was ready to go back to Yerushalayim. And in Israel, at least at the time, the Israelis were kind of notorious for being less than polite at certain circumstances. So if you're waiting to get on the bus, it was push, 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 I'm on first, which wasn't a very nice thing to do. And in fact, at the time, they had decided to make these public service announcements to show how to be polite. So I am ready to get on the bus, and there were only 3 of us at this bus stop to get on the bus to Yerushalayim. There was an older woman, there was a guy, a man who was older than me, not much necessarily. I was all of 18 though at the time, and then there was, and me. So I let the old lady go on first, and then there's just the man and me. And he let me go on first, which was a very unusual thing to do. And so I go on, and I get on the bus, and there's only 2 spots left, the window seat and the one next to the window seat. So I was on first, I got to the window seat, and this guy sits next to me, and I recognized him as being the guy that just let me get on first. And I said, Shalom. And he said, At Amerikait, you're an American? Now, you have to understand, I was wearing only clothes that I bought in Israel. I was wearing my army palladium boots, these commando boots. And I was wearing a dubon, which is an Israeli kind of a jacket that makes you look like a teddy bear, with a puffy hood and this puffy winter coat that I bought in Israel. There was no way from what I was wearing that he could tell that I was an American. What? And I said, איך אתה יודע? איך אתה ידעת? How did you know that I'm an American? And he said, from your accent. I said, all I said was shalom. How did you know? And he said, from your lamed. And I learned something that I had not ever heard the difference before. There are lots of letters that sound a little bit different in Hebrew, Israeli Hebrew, than it does in American. But the lamed, he said that Americans take the tongue and they kind of splat it on the roof of their mouths. So you get like a l sound. But in Israel, it's kind of dainty. You take the tip of your tongue and you put it right behind your teeth and you get a l sound instead of l. It's hard to tell the difference, but if you listen, you can hear the difference between those sounds. And so I said shalom, and he was expecting shalom. You say shalom, you sound Israeli. I learned my lesson. But then we get back to that lesson that I taught you last week. Yes, I am from Shreveport, because you can't kid anybody. I tried. I really tried, and I couldn't kid anybody. And it wasn't good to try to kid anybody. So that's our next letter. So we've got a lamed here, and the letter after lamed is this one. We start with essentially the resh shape, but here we leave a hole here, and we leave this part just hanging. And that's the letter, right, hey, it sounds like huh, because there's a hole here, and this part is just hanging. So we get So we go to practice the letter hey, and I'm not going to do it with that. I'm going to do it like this. The letter learning text files, the letter learning practice files. We're going to do this. Back over here, and we've got this. So hey is one of the essentially silent letters. If it comes at the end of a word, it is always silent. So for example, if I were to write a word like this, where I have a lamed and a hey, and let's say this vowel, how would I say that? La. And you leave the hey off just about. It's totally silent. La. It's like if you know someone whose name is like Sarah, then the hey is silent. The H is silent at the end. So la. So a hey sounds like in the middle of a word, at the beginning of a word, but at the end of a word it becomes silent. And so it's one of those essentially silent letters. So let's take a look at these. Let's practice. So first we have ha, ha, he, he, ho, who, and now we're going to have the ones from below the line, because I can't have a regular moving schwa with a silent consonant. So I have these composite vowels, the vowels that are combined, a moving schwa with a vowel. So if we have the moving schwa with an a, so it sounds like ha. We have a moving schwa with an and it sounds like he. We have a moving schwa and an o, and it sounds like ho. So that's practicing the letter hey. And then we go back, and we get to the next letter. Our next letter is one of my favorite ones. It's the first letter that we have so far that is, the shape of the letter is different at the end of a word. In Hebrew, 5 letters are different when the shape of the letters are different at the end of a word. In Arabic, every letter has a different shape in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of a word. In Hebrew, we only have, every letter has the same shape most of the time, except once you get to the end of a word, we've got a different shape. So this one we're going to do is like this. You start off with the same basic shape that's almost the same as the beginning of the bet, the beginning of the resh, the beginning of the hey, the beginning of the tav. Only this time, after I've come down, I'm going to come back and up. So it's going to be almost like a box. But I like to call this a marshmallow. This is a marshmallow mem. It's the mem that comes at the end of a word. And when you have a marshmallow, you say, but it's at the end of the word. So a word might be something like this. What would that word be? Lam. So this would be how I would use the letter mem. And as a matter of fact, there's some cool words that you already know with this. For example, you can read this word. What's that? Shalom. You can read shalom. Shalom. As a matter of fact, if we come back to here, to the screen, what we should do is, once we get to, starting with lesson 2, I should have done this for the lamed even. Starting with lesson 2, each, it's not there. No, you're not there. Let's come back this way. Let's go to the black box version of what this is. I obviously have to update my website. These are the words, the 3 new words we're going to be able to read. We looked at the lamed, we looked at the practice, but at the bottom of every page, after we introduce a letter, you have words that you can read. So how do I say no in Hebrew? Lo, that's how I say no. Lo. And how do I say without in Hebrew? No, well, you're not reading the word. Look, what does the word say? Li, beli. Beli means without. Beli means without. And how do I say the word? This is a good one, nice long one. A chain. A chain is a shal shelet. Shal shelet. I'm going to tell you a rule that may not mean so much to you because you still don't have any words, but the rule is that whenever you have two e's together, the accent's always going to be on the first eh. The name of the vowel is a segol, and when you have two segols together, it's called a segolet. And the accent, one of the things that happens whenever you have a segolet is the accent is always on the first eh. So this word is shalshelet. Most of the time in Hebrew, when you have a word that has more than one syllables, most of the time the accent's on the last syllable. But whenever there's an the accent's on the first. So this word, the word for chain, is shalshelet. And then we get to the next I shouldn't have done that. We get to the next practice. Sorry, shouldn't have done that. We should have just kept going down. These are the words that we're going to be able to read. Actually, we can read the first two words of this. Let's go back down. Let's try not to do this with poking. All right, so let's take a look at this. All right, so this word we should be able to read now. This is the third word of the Torah. This word is eh. We've got an aleph with a eh under it. We have a lamed with the o dot, that's elo. We have a hey with this vowel, e, and then we have a marshmallow mem. So it spells Elohim, Elohim. And you know what Elohim means? What? God, very good, Elohim. So far, if we look at our text, so far what we have is, remember the first word we had? Bereshit bara. Bereshit bara. In the beginning he created, and the next word is God. So our text says something that I don't like to translate as in the beginning, but I'm going to let you have it. In the beginning, he created God. Does that surprise you that it says he created God? It surprised me when I saw it. I don't know about you, but it surprised me. Bereshit bara Elohim. It looks like it says in the beginning he created God. But I can promise you that it doesn't say he created God. It sounds that way to those of us who are in English speakers, but it's not what happened in Hebrew. In Hebrew, our verb here is bara. The verb is bara. And in Hebrew, especially biblical Hebrew, the verb and the subject can come anywhere in the sentence. And I have to know which is the noun that is the subject, the doer, and I've got to figure out how I know that's what's happening. So I know in this case, and I'll show it to you in a second, how I know that bara Elohim means that God created, that Elohim is the subject. Elohim isn't what was being created. And I'll show that to you in 1 second. So we have these words, Bereshit bara Elohim. I'm going to show you this. We talked for a second about trope marks. Here's a little trope mark, here's a little trope mark, and here's a bigger little trope mark. This one that's highlighted now is the etnachta. I call that the wishbone one. When you get to the wishbone, it means you're in the middle of the sentence. And the middle of the sentence is significant. I like to kind of weigh the two halves of the sentence, that everything that comes up until the wishbone, the etnachta, and everything that comes afterwards, they're all each significant. There's sometimes poetry in what you see on each side of the sentence. So the first half of the sentence is Bereshit bara Elohim. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about the trope marks. You see this trope mark, this little blue guy up here? I'm going to make it bigger so you can see. That's kind of swooping backwards. So it's a little bit like a comma. I want you to pause. And then this one, you'll notice, is kind of swooping forwards. It's kind of an arrow saying, keep going. So after I say Bereshit and I take a little pause, then I put the bara Elohim together. And so it says, try to get this up so you can see the whole thing. Bereshit bara Elohim. If I did that, if I used, and the etnachta, this wishbone one, that's an up and down. Whenever you have an up and down, you take a pause. So if I use these as my kind of punctuation and more like guide, they tell me how to go, then my Hebrew phrasing will sound like I know exactly what I'm talking about even if I don't. And it will help me know what I'm talking about even if I do. Because sometimes the words thrown together, like we just saw with bara and Elohim, sometimes it can confuse you, but if you watch these trope marks, then it may help you. We'll talk about that more as we get to know more words. Bereshit bara Elohim, and then I stop. And then the next word is a really cool word for a whole bunch of reasons. Let's see if we can just zoom in on this one. The next word, what letters are in this one? I know somebody who was, go ahead, what's the first letter? Yep, not the first one on the page, the first one in this big word. You can't get any bigger. The first letter here. What's that first letter? Aleph. Sorry, yeah, it's hard to, oh, I'm sorry, let's do this. I forgot I could do this. What's that letter? Aleph. And it sounds like, and what's this last letter? Tav. And that's it. This whole word is made up of two letters, and the two letters are Aleph and Tav. And let me show you something. If we come back to my chart here, all the way back here, you will notice that the Aleph is the very first letter of the alphabet, and the Tav is the very last letter of the alphabet. So what we said so far in this text is, in the beginning, God created. And what did God create? Everything. How do I know it's everything? Because it's from the Aleph to the Tav. God created the A to the Z. God created everything. You're going to find that often in the Torah, especially in this story, you're going to find something that's called a merism, M-E-R-I-S-M. A merism is when you take opposites and it kind of means the whole thing. So sometimes you might say something like, oh, well, that's the long and short of it. I'm not going to tell you the long of it and the short of it. I'm going to tell you the whole thing. So when we say God created skies and the land, which is about what we're going to say, which we're not going to get there till next week, next lesson when we can read all of those letters. But when we say God created the skies and the land, or as you may have translated it, the heavens and the earth, it means not just those things, it means everything. It doesn't mean just those two specific things. It means everything in between. So far what we have in this sentence is, in the beginning, God created Aleph to Tav, all of the letters from the beginning to the end. How did God create? We know, we've read ahead. How did God create? God used words. And how did God make the words? He used letters. So this is showing us the whole story already, just with this one little word. But the word et doesn't mean Aleph to Tav. It doesn't mean alphabet. It doesn't mean the whole thing. The word et means something that you can't translate as a specific word in English. The word et means, it's what I like to call DDOM. What's a DDOM? The DDOM is the definite, I'm on the wrong side again, direct object marker. That spells out DDOM, the definite direct object marker. What does that mean? You need to know a little bit of grammar. I need to tell you, if I say something like, I read a book, then what's receiving the action of the verb? What's the action? Read. And what's receiving the action of the book? The action of the read, the action of the verb? The book. So the book is the object. If it's a definite object, then it would be the book. So I would say I read a book, but I would have to say I read et the book. If whatever's receiving the action of the verb is definite, I'd have to say et in front of it. This is how I know for sure that God is not what's being created. Because if we go back to this and we say, in the beginning he created God, God is definite. And I'd have to say, in the beginning he created et God. And that's not where the et is. The et is on whatever's coming next. So now I know that it's in the beginning God created, and the et is going to tell me what was being created. It's really helpful to have an et when your verbs and your subjects can go anywhere. So we now need to learn two more letters so we can get to this next word. And the next word's our last word. Do you need to know all this grammar? No, but it was nice of me to give it to you, and it's in the reference, and one day it's going to mean a lot to you once you're really learning the words and things, and some of you already got it. So we have these letters. The next letter we have is actually kind of cool. I'm going to move this down here. I'm going to put it here. The next letter goes like this. You kind of make a mountain, and then you come back and you have a bottom part missing, and then you have a missile on top. I call this the missile mountain mem. Some people make it, instead of a mountain, they make it a mound with a bottom missing and a missile on top. And if it is a mountain with a bottom missing and a missile, what sound do you think it makes? Think about it. Say it with me. Say, missile mountain mem. So missile mountain mem sounds like But you just said that the marshmallow mem sounds like How could you have a missile mountain mem and it sounds like Because I told you that the marshmallow mem is the shape of the mem only when it comes at the end of a word. Any place else in a word you're going to find it, it's going to shape like this. So for example, in the word that we have up here, we have ha, sha, ma. Hashama. So now we're going to go do this. We forgot to do this for all these words. Let's go back and practice some words. I am not doing this in order very well. All right, so let's see how it says. How do we say in Hebrew, the one who comes? So how do you say it? Haba. Haba. Can everybody read that? Haba. And how do I say this word? I'm not even going to say it out loud. How do I say this word? Something's clicked. I see what's happening here. We've got a something on there. Aha. Go away. Go away. It doesn't want to go away. Go away. Click on you. You won't click on you. It won't stay. All right. Torah. How do we say Torah? There's Torah. I may have to go to, let's refresh and come back again. I can trick my computer into doing many, many things. Nope, it's still there. It's okay, I'm still going to get past it. All right, so we're here now, and we're at Torah. How do I say Torah in Hebrew? Torah. Oh, you're good. You're very good. And how do I say many in Hebrew? Harbe. 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 That's many. Harbe. And then we learn the marshmallow mem, and we forgot to practice the words for marshmallow mem. So this word means a name or a reputation. How do I say your name or your reputation? Shem. Shem. Very good. Shem. Shem. Very good. That's your name. You could say, oh, it's a shame what you did to your name. It's not a shame. It's a wonderful thing. How do you say the mother in Hebrew? Ha-em. Ha-em. So the ha part at the beginning of a word means the. And then the em is how you say mother. Em is mother. And this word we did read together. Shalom is hello, and it's goodbye, and it's peace. And I think I mentioned to you before, I know I talked about it many times last week, the word shalom, peace, means not necessarily the opposite of war, but it means completeness, because the root letters, which are shin, lamed, well, not the vav, shin, lamed, and mem, those three root letters, shin, lamed, mem, it has to do with complete. When you finish a transaction, if you go to a store or a restaurant and you want to pay, the word to pay is lishalem, because you're completing the action. And it gives somebody peace when you complete that action, probably the one who owns the store. The next letter that we did was the letter mem, with a bottom missing and a missile and a mountain, and we've got all the practice things if we want, but let's do this. How do I say what or how? Ma. Sorry. Ma, what? Ma, what? Ma, what? It's how as an exclamation. You may have heard the song, Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Behold how good and how pleasant it is. Or Matovu ohalecha Yaakov. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob. So sometimes in exclamations, it becomes a how. It's not like, what good are your tents, Jacob? It's, how good are your tents, Jacob? It's not supposed to be a question, a challenge. It's supposed to be an exclamation. And that's this word, ma, which means what or how. And then we have this, which unfortunately we know way too much about these days. Yeah, how do I say that in Hebrew? Mabul. Mabul is a flood. In Yiddish, you say, oh, it was a mabul. You'll find that in Yiddish, in Ashkenazic pronunciation, the accent often shifts to the front of the word, to the beginning syllable. And I told you already, in modern pronunciation, most often the accent's at the end of the word. So in modern Hebrew, you would say mabul. But in Ashkenazi, you say a mabul. It was a mabul. But anyway, we got through that. And then we've got one more letter to teach you. We have the teeniest, tiniest letter. I'm going to show it to you like this. Every other letter that we have kind of sort of fits in a box. Sometimes they sneak a little bit out of the box, but they mostly fit in the box. The Yud, the Lamed sneaks out because it's got that capital L. But the Yud, if I make my box, the Yud only takes up this much of the box. You see the top and then down here. That's as far as it's going to go. Our font sometimes looks a little bit bigger. It looks like it goes below halfway, but that's it. And remember when I told you that the Hebrew letters come from the top of the line and go down? This is the best example because its little toe doesn't even reach to the bottom. See? It's actually supposed to be a yad, which is a hand. This is your hand. A yad. And some people pronounce the name of the letter yad. But I still have some Ashkenazic behind me where I was taught Ashkenazic pronunciations. This, for example, would be an I in Ashkenazic, and this would be an E, and this would be an E, and this would be an A. That's an Ashkenazic pronunciation. Then what happens is you get to me and my generation that we learned an Ashkenazic. We had Ashkenazic teachers, or our parents or grandparents were Ashkenazic, and now we know that there's a modern Israeli pronunciation, so we're trying to do some things in a modern Israeli pronunciation, but some things that we do still sounds Ashkenazic, and so we call that Ashkephardic. When you combine the Ashkenazic and the Sephardic, it's a joke, but it's true. So if I call this letter a Yud, it's a little bit Ashkephardic. And there are other things that I do that's Ashkephardic. I'll let you know when they come up, but I like saying that word anyway, Ashkephardic. All right, so Yud. Now, in this case, we have seen the Yud before. We saw the Yud, it's hard to see on this thing. We saw the Yud when it's part of this vowel, the E vowel. And now we're going to see it as its own consonant. It's going to feel a little bit like the E vowel. Let's practice it here. So what's that? We have ya, ya, yeah, yeah. Look at this. We have to have the Yud and then the E together. Yi, ye, and that shows us it's fatter and bigger because that's the one that we're going to find in our text in the Torah. And then we have yo, 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 right? And then we have yo. And then we have you. And then we have you. And then we have you. Here's some words that we can practice from the beginning. Here's words that we can practice using a Yud. How do I say days? I have ya, mim. Yamim are days. Do you know how to say one day? Just a day? Yom, like Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur, that's a day. And the plural is yamim. The im ending is often a plural word. This is how you say this name. So guess what it says in Hebrew? It says Miriam. That's what her name is. It's just Miriam, Miriam. And this one gives you a hint of what it is. This one is Yerushalayim. 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 And then if you go to the after this in the text, then you will find that we haven't enough letters to read the whole first sentence, but we did learn an awful lot. We have learned how to read this. This is part of, most of, the first sentence of the Torah. Remember that this little aleph at the beginning means we're at chapter 1, verse 1. This means 1. And the bet is bigger because it's bigger in almost every Torah or every Torah book that you get. So the words are ba, re, and that's all part of the re. And then we have sheet, ba, ra, el, we have this word. Ha, sha, ma, yim. Hashamayim. So far what we have in our text is Bereshit, which I'm letting you translate as in the beginning. Bara, he created. Elohim. But I told you that it doesn't mean he created God. In the beginning, God created. What did God create? Look at this. Look at these trope marks. We have this trope mark and this trope mark. Whoops. You notice how they're kind of pointing to each other? So we're going to take those two words and we're going to group them together. We're going to say, Et Hashamayim. So we have Hashamayim is this word, but I'm going to keep them together. Et Hashamayim, keep them grouped together. So we have Bereshit, which I'm going to leave all by itself because it has this trope mark. And then I have Bara, and I'm going to keep going. And then I'm going to have Elohim. So it's going to be Bereshit, Bara, Elohim. And then these two words I keep together because the trope marks tell me to. Et Hashamayim. In the beginning, God created. Now, I had shown you before in our practice words that when you have ha at the beginning of a word, that means the. Ha is the. And then I told you that when you have an im ending, it usually means plural. So that's why I like to translate this word as the skies and not the heavens. If I say heaven to you, a lot of times you picture like angels with harps or something. And I don't know if that's what we're talking about here. I think that this is what God is talking about as the skies. I think it means both things. But if I say heavens, then you only have a limited amount of things you think about. If I say skies, it becomes a vast thing, and it could mean a variety of things. So it says, in the beginning, God created the skies. I'm going to tell you something. I like to say that this is a lesson where I have a present for all of my Christian friends here. Because the third word of the Torah, so the first word is Bereshit, and the second word is bara, and the third word is Elohim. The third word, Elohim, God. So you have to get to the third word, which is a really strange thing when you think about it. Wouldn't you say that all of Torah and all of creation, kind of the core is God? Why do we wait for the third word to get to God? It's kind of a good question. But now that we've gotten to the third word, we see a word that looks plural because of that im ending, but acts singular. So for my Christian friends, I like to give this present. Usually when I'm teaching and I have like pastors in the class, they're like, I know what I'm talking about this weekend. This is my sermon. That the third word of Torah, the third word of the creation story, the word is God, and it looks plural, but acts singular. How do I know it's acting singular? How do I know that it's really a singular word? Because the verb says he created. The verb would be different if it were a plural subject. So the verb is telling me very definitively, very specifically, no lying, no cheating ever, that I must be right because the thunder is telling me that bara is singular. There's only one God. So it says, in the beginning, God created the skies. And you know what's going to happen next week. The skies are getting jealous. We're going to see what else it is. But these notes are here also. There's also the thing that I pointed out the other day. You see this whole word that's in blue here? I pointed this out last week. That word is what? How do I say that one? Bara. So that word is bara, and it means he created. But you'll notice that those same three letters in that order are right here. Bet, Resh, Aleph. We have Bet, Resh, Aleph, and we have Bet, Resh, Aleph. So even though the Bet, Resh, Aleph from the first word does not mean created, because the first word, it comes from this. Ba, which means in or with, and then we have the word Rosh, which means head. Like when a baby is born, it's supposed to be born head first. And we have a world being born here, so it's being born head first. And then the eat ending means something like an instance of something. So I have in or at a head moment, a head instance, God was creating. That's what I have here. Sometimes people translate this as not Rosh, but kind of related to Rosh. They use this whole word, Reshit. And Reshit could mean something like primal stuff, that with primal stuff, God is creating. There's a bunch of different ways of translating it, but I don't like just saying in the beginning. It makes me sad, because there's so much more that's in here. But we can now read these words. We can read Bereshit, and then bara Elohim et DDOM hashamayim. In the beginning, God created the skies. And that's as far as we have to do today. Oh, and somebody's knocking at the door. He got locked out. Hold on one second, and I can answer your question. Wait a minute. I meant to unlock that door. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Who's that knocking at my door? Barnacle Bill the rabbi. Yes. Oh, so, okay, let me show you. This is actually kind of cool. This is good. So this is the word, right? I'm erasing these letters. We've had all these letters. Look at the word. I keep leaving my good pens over there. We have ha, sha, mayim. We're in trouble because this letter is getting bad. I left my pens over here. Ha, sha, mayim. So ha means the. This part here means the. The word sham means there, over there. And the word mayim means water. So some people are saying that the way we got the word shamayim for skies is shamayim. That's there is where the water is. If I had a puddle on the ground and the puddle dried up, what would fill up my puddle? When rain came from up there, shamayim, from up there is water. So shamayim is a good way of there is water, meaning there, not there is, but it's over there, like the place. Shamayim means there's water. This is very messy. Sham means there, and then the mayim, it's not making it any neater, sorry. Mayim means water. This is pretty cool. And it's also a fun word to say. Say shamayim, 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 shamayim. And think about this. Think about, we're talking about a baby world, right? A baby universe. And if you think about the sounds that babies can make, ma, 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 something a baby can say. We're going to talk more about that as we get closer to the end of the first day. But that's the end for today. Any other questions? Gives you a week of practice. I hope that those show me's help. They're still new. I haven't been using them for very, very long. So if you see things that you want me to fix or things that you want me to add, please let me know. But then if you go to the text, then you can find all of these things. All of our helper things and things about the markers, the trope marks, and things like that. Well, here's